atomic peace particles in Noone terms. We're back with part 11 of Bible Interpretation and Explanations, Book 1. And we will continue with the explanations and inspiration and revelation, as well as the facts, with the help from a little bit of AI to help people understand Noone better. I am your host, Noopooh-Nature, and welcome back again.
All right. True peace, everybody. I am Noopooh-Nature. And as Tarkinu said, these are, messages and teachings that are designed to help those who are seeking truth and spirituality, to help awaken from the spell of religion, as well as the spell of just everyday life as well. So we are just doing our part in educating those that may look to seek knowledge in general, as well as knowledge within Noone, which happens to be the science of all sciences and the science in science, which our great messenger AFROO, Reorganized, as well as aONOO, Reorganized, Nubi Ripu has laid down through his research and through his manifestations from Noopooh. So we are just doing our job on a smaller scale to help to expand Noone as best as we can and show the correlation with the spells and as far as breaking the spells and helping those to see a little further. So here we are. Get ready for the show.
True peace. I'm Noopooh-Nature, and I know tonight will be just as extravagant and extraordinary as their video before, to break down more science, deeper and deeper into the root of information that we were never privy to, as far as the Caucasian race and their teachings and so forth. Through all the deception, we know the spell will be broken.
Indeed.
All right, Ken, waiting on you to take it away.
Take it away. All right, let's get it crunk. Let's get it crunk. All right. Where did we last leave off? Okay, right here. So I did remember last time I think I answered this question in half, where we showed the sun god Reorganized, the type of power that he was wielding. Remember, we went into the ancient Egyptian text, the Temple of Edfu, where we saw the military campaign that he led to drive Adam and Eve out of Africa into the Great Green, known as the Aegean Islands. Okay? So now we're going to tap in to the other part of this question, which is the children that they started having, right, which were called Cain, right? And Cain is short for Caucasian. So I'm gonna just read the whole thing, and then we'll get into the answer. Okay. So here we go. What were the results of breaking the commandments and the laws of the sun god? The priests and nuns called Adam and Eve were sent to the Aegean Islands between Asia and Europe, where they started having children. And each couple's firstborn child was an albino. And those albinos are called Cain in the Bible. And Cain is short for Caucasian. Adam and Eve had more children, and those and those born after Cain were called Abel. Abel was black like his parent, like his and her parents, but of course, East Indians have straight hair. The children called Cain grew up envying and hating the children called Abel. And as a result, a conflict developed between the two groups, and Cain, aided by the moon god, killed Abel. The older people left alive demanded that Cain be sent away for his and her evil doings. Then the moon god, who beguiled Eve, appeared to the leader of the Cain group in a dream. Genesis, the 4th chapter. Okay, so we're gonna tackle this particular question. I answered half of it, which was a pretty long, sent to the Aegean Islands. You see that? The priest called Adam and Eve was sent to the Aegean Islands, but we needed to get the backstory on how they were sent there. Okay, so we had the backstory and what was the results of them breaking those laws. Okay, so let me stop the screen sharing for a second because I gotta dive into something real quick before, because this thing got separated. It got separated. What you call it? When I was doing my research on this. Okay, so yeah, I hope you all really you know, enjoying these shows and even doing your own research outside of these what you call it, these teachings, because that's the only way that we'll be able to to reach a hold on. Okay, that's the only way we'll be able to reach this this level of reasonability. Okay, so hold on, give me 1 second, y'all. Share screen again. Share screen. All right. All right. There we go. All right. You guys can see the screen? Just want to know.
Yeah, we can see it.
All right. So this is part of the answer. So the answer that ChatGPT gave me before, that's a little further up, was that we can find some of these stories within the Manetho Josephus account, right? And though it has a whole different pharaoh at this particular point in time, this is the account. This is one of the accounts of where these particular priests started having these albino children. So I asked ChatGPT, where's the story and what does it say about the new peoples, Manatheos, Josephus traditions, impurities, priests, lepers expelled eastward, forming a new people. It says, excellent. Let's zoom in on the Manetho Josephus account and pull out exactly what it says. The source: Manetho was an Egyptian priest, 3rd century BCE, Ptolemaic period, who wrote an Egyptica, History of Egypt. The original is lost, but fragments survive in Josephus against Apion, 1st century CE, and later writers. In Book 1 of Against Apion, Josephus quotes Manatheo's story and about a group of impure priests. This was Adam and Eve, and lepers expelled from Egypt. All right. So the story summarizes from Josephus against Apion 1. I guess this is chapter 1, 26 to 31. King Amenophis, which is Amenhotep, wanted to see the gods. His seer told him he must cleanse Egypt of impure people. The king gathered 80,000 lepers and polluted persons, many of them priests, unfit for their sacred duties. They were sent to live near the quarries of the Nile, suffering hard labor. Later, the king pitied them and allowed them to live in Avaris, a desert city near the delta. Though there they chose a leader, a priest named Asar Seth, sometimes identified with Moses. Sarsef bound them by oath, forbidding Egyptian religious practices and ordering them to eat impure animals. He allied with the Hyksos, earlier Asiatic invaders, right? So this story is actually a little bit later down the line, right? So this is not the original Adam and Eve, but the Chat GPT was pulling from this particular group of people that existed at that particular point in time. But what I really wanted us to hone in on was that there was no word for albino at that particular point in time. I can only pull up the word lepers, right? So lepers or leprous. Lepers means those that have deformed skin. Okay, so that's one of the main reasons why. So this is like one of the earliest accounts of people with deformed skin, lepers. And also a lot of ancient tribes, they would call them white or pale, and that's what we're about to see. But I really just pulled this out so that we can see that the ancient people called them lepers, but these aren't the original Adam and Eve group. Okay, we're gonna get to the Adam and Eve group right now. I'm gonna pull that up. Give me 1 second. Hold on, I gotta make this screen smaller. Oh wait, no, sorry. Hold on, I gotta make that smaller. There we go. Now we could pull up. Oh my goodness. My laptop sometimes acts slow. There we go. Continue conversation thread. All right. So we're gonna scroll to the top. All right. So this is where we're gonna get the answer to the question that we want. Okay. So this was from an earlier conversation that was kind of all over the place. So I had to kind of formalize it in a more neat way. All right. So I said I want to build from a conversation we were having. It says, got it. We can definitely pick up from that conversation. Okay. Would you like me to reopen the discussion we were having about the white tribes and ancient sources or something else? So I basically copied and pasted what it said to me before. So it said there isn't a Hindu scripture that tells of a literal white tribe killing a darker tribe. What does exist are Vedic battle hymns, Indra versus Das use. Several Rig Vedic verses describe Indra destroying the Dasa or Dasyu, sometimes with color words that later readers took as light versus dark. For example, Griffith says Indra blew away the swarthy skin, right? And Rig Veda's I guess it's chapter 130, verse 8, says he tore off the black skin while defending the Arya worship. These are deity myth hymns, not accounts of a historical Swetka tribe. Many scholars read the color words as poetic, darkness or evil rather than racial. Historical white Huns, Swetka Huna, not Hindu myth. Centuries later, after the Vedas, North India faced invasions by the Huns, called the Swetka Huns, the white Huns. In Sanskrit, their king, keep this in mind, Mahira Kula is remembered in Indian and Chinese sources. So now they're spreading their oaths for extreme cruelty and large killing scale. Kashmiri chronicles like the Raja Taranjini, I guess, all right, Raja Taranjini portray him as a violent ruler. This is history recorded around Hindu India, not a Hindu scripture tribe story. Things often confused with a white tribe, but not a Swetka white island. In the Puranas, is a sacred realm of Vishnu, not a Hindu tribe or a war tale. If you're looking for exact passages, Rig Veda 9:73-5, blowing away the swarthy skin which Indra hates. See, in this thing, they're saying that some of the what ChatGPT is saying that it wasn't really racial, but you could just tell from the words that it is racial. What to me is like, how do you say you're blowing away the swarthy skin which Indra hates, but is not racial? That doesn't make sense. Then in one of the other lines it says he tore off the black skin. That to me is not symbolic. If you meant the historical white tribe conquering darker peoples in and around India, that best matches the Swetka Huna, the white Huns invasions. If you meant a scriptural light versus dark narrative, the closest are the Indra versus Dashu hymns above. Want me to pull the Rig Vedic verses or the lines about Mahira Kula? Basically, this was a copy and paste that I put there. So now it answers exactly. You've nailed the distinction. In scripture, the Rig Veda has the Indra hymns where the black skin or swarthy skin of the Dasa or Dasu is destroyed. These verses are usually understood as metaphorical, darkness or demonic qualities rather than a literal racial war. No text describes an actual Swetka white human tribe defeating and wiping out a darker tribe. But we will see how this is actually not true, because they actually do wipe them out. In history, post-Vedic, the Swetka Huna, the white Huns of the 5th and 6th century CE, invaded North India. Mahira Kula, their most infamous ruler, appears in the Raja Taranjini and Chinese records as exceptionally cruel. This is a record of mass slaughter. So how could you say this? No text describes an actual white human defeating and wiping out a darker tribe, and then in this instance say this is a record of mass slaughter. That makes entirely no sense by ChatGPT. So ChatGPT needs a spanking for that. But it's not in Hindu scripture. It is written in Sanskrit chronicles and foreign accounts. Things often confused. The Swetka White Island was called the Sweta Vipa in the Puranas is a divine realm of Vishnu's devotees, not a human tribe. Later retellings sometimes blend the Vedic dark enemies with historical invasions, creating a tribe story that the Veda itself never had. The closest scriptural passages are the Rig Veda hymns to the Indra against the Dasyus, the closest historical case in the Swetka Huna invasion. Would you like me to compile a full set of Rig Vedic verses that mention black skin or color-coded enemies in one place so you can see the consistent or inconsistent the imagery is? I said yes. Perfect. Here's a compiled set of Rig Vedic verses where Indra's battle against the Dasa slash Dasu is described with color imagery, the closest thing in Hindu scripture to light versus dark war. Rig Veda verses with black/swarthy skin references. He, Indra, tore off the black skin that enveloped the Dasyus. He protected the Aryan color. How could you say this is not black? This is not black versus white, but this says he tore off the black skin that envelops the Dasyus. He protected the Aryan color. Okay. Context. Indra is praised for helping Arya against Dasyus. Black skin is often interpreted as metaphorical ignorance, demonhood, rather than literal. That could be impossible. How could you protect a color but yet still do this? Okay. Blowing away with might the swarthy skin that Indra hates. The Soma has flowed forth. Soma him linking the ritual drink to Indra's destruction of enemies. Again, swarthy skin is figurative in most scholarly readings. He the strong slew Dasyus and protected the Aryan color. Indra's role in the guardians of the sacrifices. Again, you can't protect the color if you're not destroying it because of the color. He smote the Dasyus and cast down their forts of iron. He gave protection to the Aryan color. Once again, the Aryan color was established by Indra. He made firm from the heavens and earths. The word Varna, color, is used in these hymns. In the Vedic text, Varna primarily meant class. Here we go again. Class. So if you take this word class, copy and paste it here, right? He gave protection to the Aryan class, which is like a what you call it? A type of people. Once again, class, type, quality rather than rigid race. Though it became the caste maker. Caste maker is like a group of something. Okay? So once again, this color does refer to people. All right? But it's saying black skin or swarthy skin are poetic tags for enemies, not literal proof of skin color warfare. It actually is. Indra versus Dasyus is a mythic battle, language embedded in sacrificial hymns, not a historical record of the Svetka tribe. Then it asks me, do you want to pull the Sanskrit text lines, Devanagari, and translation for each of these verses so you can see the exact word used, like Krishna, Tavak, black skin. That way you'll have the original wording side by side with the translation. I said yes. Excellent. Here's a side-by-side Rig Veda material with Sanskrit Devanagari plus translation and the key English translations. There are main verses where the Indras fight with the Dasa or Dasyu involves black swarthy skin or protecting the Aryan Varna. He tore off the black skin that enveloped the Dasyus. He protected the Aryan color. The Somas the battle-loving, have flowed for Indra, the slayer of the Dasyus, the conqueror. They have uncovered the black skin. You drove away the Dasyus, the haters of prayers, with your aids, O Indra, most gracious. You established the Aryan Varna for permanence and set all these forts in place. May he drive away Dasyus. May he guard the Aryan color. May he smite the foes and others. May Mishra and Varuna be gracious to us. Indra established the Aryan color among men. He made firm in heaven and earth. Okay? Black, dark, swarthy skin covering. Then I asked it here, was the tearing off of the skin a jealousy or hatred thing? It says in the Rig Vedas, when the when the Indra says tore off the black skin, the tone is not one of jealousy, but of battle and hatred of Dasu quality. Okay, so apparently they're saying that the Dasyus were like the impure people at that particular point in time. Okay, so we're going to scroll down a little bit, and then we're going to go. Then I said, okay, we're not going to keep going back and forth about that. So I said I want to go a little bit deeper into the invasion and the war that took place, that and how brutal it was. It says, got it. Now we're stepping into the mythic Rig Veda layer, into the historical invasions that later Hindu and Buddhist sources remembered as truly brutal. The figure that best matches your request is Swetka-Huna, White Huns, and their king Mahira Kula in the 5th century CE. Let's go deep. Who is Swetka-Huna? They are the Central Asiatic Nomadic Confederation related to the Hephthalites, Huns of Bactria, Afghanistan. Sanskrit and Prakrit sources call them Huna, and some texts specify Swetka-Huna, White Huns. Once again, they keep calling these people white, but they're saying it's not color. It's absolutely color. You're calling them white for a reason, because of their skin color. They crossed into North India around the 5th century CE. See, the thing is as well, a lot of these dates are also off because these stories are being told after the fact. They had original sources, and those sources were written after the fact, okay? After breaking through Persia and Gandhara, the invasion into India. Around 460 CE, the Huns began pressing into the Gupta Empire, which was in decline. By 520 CE, Mahirakula, son of Toramana, ruled a large swath of northwest India, including Kashmir. The Huns devastated cities, destroyed Buddhist monasteries, and disrupted the urban economy. How brutal was it? Mahirakula is remembered as a monster, cruel as death. He delighted in massacre day after day without cause. He slaughtered countless creatures. He is said to have killed all inhabitants of entire towns, even animals, out of sheer violence. So this is where we tying into the whole Cain killing Abel and wiping them out completely. Chinese records, the Buddhist pilgrim Shanzang writes that Mahirakula was a persecutor of Buddhism. He ordered the destruction of the stupas and monasteries and mass killing of monks. Banas Haras Karita described Mahirakula as a terrifying Hun overlord. He is associated with extreme cruelty, and his reign brought earth into darkness. War and counterattacks. The Gupta remnants and allied Indian kings resisted. This is where the people who were left had to push them out. Eventually, Yazdor Harman at Malawa defeated Mahirakula and drove the Huns out of central India. Mahirakula retreated to Kashmir, continued ruling harshly, and later died, but his name remained synonymous with brutality. Scale of atrocity. Unlike the poetic Rigveda hymns, here the sources converge on real massacres. Mahirakula is remembered as one of the most hated invaders in Indian memory, commemorable to Attila in Europe. In Buddhist memory, he is almost demonized as an enemy of the Dharma. Myth history overlap. Later retellings sometimes blended Indra mythical slaying of the black-skinned Dasyus with the historical white Huns. This created the sense of a white tribe invading, slaughtering, and being forced northward, outwards. Exactly the overlap you're tracing. So we can see now, right? This is what told me that this story was actually older than what it really was. Okay, So the story is actually older than what they're saying because of this, because there's an overlay. Okay, the Rig Veda gives us mythic battles where Indra strips the black skin of impious enemies, not literal genocides. Swetkahuna invasions in India, however, were remembered as brutal wars where entire populations were massacred. Miracula is particularly became a symbol of cruelty and indiscriminate slaughter, destruction of monasteries, and terror that scarred Indian cultural memory for centuries. Would you like me to reconstruct the timeline of Miracula's campaign, step by step entry into India, conquest, atrocities, defeat, exile, so you get the full war narratives as if it were a flowing story? I said yes, perfect. Let me build a step by step war narrative of the Swetkahuna invasion under Mahirakula. The white Huns, remembered for their brutality, I'll weave into Indian chronicles, Chinese pilgrims, and modern reconstruction so it flows like a historical account. So here we go. Swetkahuna invasion, timeline, brutality, and war. The Huns, Hephthalites, were already storming Persia, Central Asia, and Kushum realms. In India, the Gupta Empire was beginning to fracture after the reign of Skandagupta. Into the weakness pressed the Swetkahuna, a branch of Huns identified in Sanskrit sources. The Huns pressed the Hindu Kush into Gandhara, modern Afghanistan, Pakistan, early razed the devastated towns and trade routes along the northwest frontier. They clashed with the Guptas. Skandagupta is remembered for temporarily repelling them. Tomarama, Mahirakula's father, established Hunnic power deep into India. Inscriptions show him ruling in Malwa, Rajasthan, breaking Gupta control. By the time of his death, Huns were entrenched across northwest and central India. Mirakula inherits the throne in Gandhara, Kashmir. Sanskrit and Chinese sources describe him as a man of ruthless cruelty who delighted in slaughter. Unlike many foreign rulers who absorbed Indian religion, Mirakula is remembered as a destroyer of shrines, especially Buddhists. The wave of terror, massacres. In the Kalhanas, Raja Taranjini says the man of violent acts was like death himself, delighting daily in massacres of countless beings without cause. This goes to show you that Cain was a ruthless killer. He murdered most of Abel in India, around that area. Cities were put to the sword. Entire populations, including women, children, and animals, were slaughtered. He took them all. He wasn't playing. Persecution of Buddhism. Jun Zhang, Chinese pilgrim, reports that Mirakula destroyed 1,600 Buddhist monasteries and killed monks. In Gandhara and Kashmir, stupas and shrines were toppled. He became infamous as an anti-Buddha king. Economic reign, trade routes collapsed, agricultural villages burned. Archaeological layers show abrupt breaks in urban communities in North India during this period. The counterattack. The coalition of Indian rulers united against Mahirakula. Most famously, Yashodarman of Malwa defeated Mirakula in a decisive battle recorded in Mandsaur pillar inscription. The victory ended in Hunnic power in central India. Mirakula retreat and last reign. Driven from the plains, Mirakula retreated to Kashmir. There he continued a reign of cruelty, remembered for killing people without cause. Legends say he ordered elephants to trample captives, eventually weakened He turned north again towards Gandhara, and there he died around 540. Legacy of brutality. In India, memory, Miracula, Attila of India, he's demonized as a dark king who left a trail of blood and ruin. Later Puranic and Buddhist texts equated his violence with cosmic adharma, disorder. You remember disorder, which was Isfet in the ancient Egyptian text? They're bringing disorder again. The name Swet Kahuna, White Huns, lingered in Sanskrit literature as invaders who brought devastation and were eventually driven back northward. Here we go, northward into Europe. Okay, we'll eventually get to that portion too. So these are the ones that were driven northward. Okay. Rig Veda gives us a mythic language about Indra stripping the black skin of impious enemies. The Swet Kahuna War under Miracula is the closest historical analog, a white tribe invasion that turned into one of the most brutal wars India endured. Entire cities were massacred, monasteries destroyed, and for a brief time, North India was plunged into terror until native kings expelled them. That goes back into the mere fact that we were speaking about here, where Cain, the children called Cain, grew up envying and hating the children called Abel, and as a result, a conflict developed between the two groups. Cain, aided by the moon god, killed Abel. The older people left alive demanded that Cain be sent away for his and her evil doings, okay? So that's where we get that from. So we'll go back to this now. Sorry, I came off the screen for a second, but we're going to go back. Oh, wait. Where is it? Sorry. There we go. All right. So it says, would you like me to pair this with the historical timeline of the Rig Veda black skin versus side by side to show how the later peoples may have blurred the mythic war poetry with an actual Hunnic massacres? That way you can see the continuity between the scripture and history. I asked, was this the most brutal battle? So that's a powerful question. Let's weigh the invasion against the other wars in India to see if it was the most brutal. And it did, because it's number one, scale of Miracula's violence. Kahana says countless beings killed daily without cause, but it was with cause. He hated those tribes. Miracula is remembered for cruelty beyond politics, like killing animals, ordering elephants to trample captives, and slaying innocent for pleasure. His violence was indiscriminate, even though it was not just wartime combat, but systemic terror. Then it has a couple of other battles going on here, which happened to be a little later. All right. So here we go. The verdict is yes. Miracula's war is remembered as the cruelest in early Indian history, and all of Indian history probably rivaled and surpassed by Timur's sack of Delhi, which was more destructive in raw numbers. But in terms of cruelty and cultural memory, Miracula's invasion holds a unique place as the darkest age between the fall of the Guptas and the rise of later Indian dynasties. Okay? And then I asked about the Kuruksha War, because the Kuruksha War happened to be a battle between two brothers, right? And we know that Cain and Abel were born from Adam and Eve, right? And they talk about excellent point, the Kuruksha War of the Mahabharata is one of the most remembered battles in Indian tradition. Let's unpack it carefully, especially in light of your dark versus light angle. Kuruksha War Mahabharata epic. Who fought? Two sets of cousins, right? They were related. Pandavas, 5 brothers, sons of Pandu. The Kauravas, 100 sons of Dhartrashtra. Both were Kshatriya royals of the Kuru dynasty, not foreign tribes, but of one family split by rivalry. Was it dark versus light? The epic does not describe it in racial color terms like light versus dark. Pandavas are seen as aligned with Dharma, cosmic light, cosmic order and light. Kauravas are aligned with Adharma, chaos and darkness. So this could be another aspect to it as well. Poetic metaphors in later traditions sometimes treats it as forces light versus darkness, but this is not moral. This is moral, not skin color. In contrast, Rig Veda's Krishna Tavak, black skin, the Mahabharata frames the struggle in ethical and cosmic realms, not pigmentation. Who won after 18 days of battle? The Pandavas, light Dharma side, were victorious. The Kauravas, the Adharma side, were almost completely annihilated. Nearly all warriors died, leaving the land devastated. Yudhishthira, eldest Pandava, became king, but reluctantly, seeing the carnage as too costly. Scale of brutality. Text says millions of warriors gathered, exaggerated epic numbers. Almost all were slain. Only a handful survived on either side. Some scholars compare it to cultural memory to a mythic world war, the darkest war in Indian imagination. Symbolic parallels. Like Rig Veda hymns, it is framed as Dharma versus Adharma. Like the Punic War under Miracula, it ended in mass destruction, the dark side being crushed. But like Miracula's cruelty, the Mahabharata epic is mythic epic, teaching about cosmic fate, cosmic justice, fate, and the burden of war. The Kurukshetra War was not described as dark skin versus light skinned people. Instead, it is cosmic moral war, darkness, Adharma versus light, Dharma. The lighter Dharma side, Pandavas, did indeed win, but at such cost that it felt like no one truly won. Would you like me to set up a side-by-side comparison? Then I said, were these sides described genetically, and was the side who won asked to leave to go to Europe? This is a sharp question because it blends the epic memory Mahabharata with the later historical migrations of Swet Kahuna, Indo-Aryans, etc. Let me break it into parts so it's clear. Were the Kuruksha sides described genetically? No, not in the sense of race or biology. Both of the Pandavas and the Kauravas were of the same royal Kuru lineage. They are cousins, descendants of Bharata, part of the same Indo-Aryan elite culture. This does not distinguish them by skin color, genetics, or tribe. Instead, Mahabharata frames the difference as moral, Dharma versus Adharma, not genetic or racial. Then the next one was, were they asked to leave to go to Europe? In the Mahabharata, no. After the Pandavas one day ruled Hispaniola, then later renounced the throne and went to the Himalayas. There's no story in the epic of the winners being exiled to Europe. In history, however, some invasions and migrations did involve groups moving northwest out of India into Central Asia and further west. For example, Indo-Aryan migrations 2000 to 1500 BC flowed into India, Central Asia, and some branches went westward into Europe. Okay, Swet Kahuna, 5th to 6th century CE, came into India. After being defeated, many were pushed back towards Central Asia from there, related groups linked with the Huns in Europe. So while the Mahabharata does not have such a migration story, later historical invasions like the Huns did connect India, Central Asia, and Europe. Okay? So they did have some migrations into Europe, but there wasn't enough evidence to really link them as far as white versus black, or darker versus lighter in that sense. Not like the Sweat Kahuna, because the Sweat Kahuna literally named the white tribe. Okay, why the confusion sometimes happens. Vedic hymn speaks of light Arya versus dark Dasu. Later readers took as racial. Mahabharata cosmic light versus dark, no genetics. History, white Huns, Sweat Kahuna, invaded brutally, were expelled, and did move northwest again. Later traditions sometimes blurred myth and history, making it sound like a white tribe defeated the dark tribes in India, then went to Europe. Bottom line, Kuruksha war, not genetic, not racial. Dharma versus Adharma among one royal family. Winners stayed in India. Sweat Kahuna, historical, brutal, white tribe defeated, but then pushed northward, some toward Europe. Indo-Aryan migrations, pre-Vedic, ancient languages, branches that spread both westward Europe and southward India. Okay, and then I said, okay, hold on, wait. Do you want me to trace where in the Indian text we do see the banished north? For example, Puranic geography, enemies being sent to Yatartha, the northern route. So you could, I should have said yes, but I said, okay, let's tap into the spirituality of Swetka and Siva. Could you give us a breakdown and some of the symbols? How did it spread to Europe? Then it said, this is a very rich thread. You're pointing to the Swetka, white tribes, the Swetkahuna, white Huns in history, and the Seva or Siva center practices that often became entangled with them. Let's go layer by layer, because here are the mixing spiritual currents, symbols, and migration path that connects India and Europe. This is where things going to start heating up now. Swetka in Indian spiritual language, Swetka means white, shining, radiant in Sanskrit. It appears in several contexts. Swetka Deepa, which was the White Islands in the Puranas, a mythical land where Narayana Vishnu is worshipped. The Swetka Varaha, the white boar, and other deities with luminous white aspects. Then the Swetkahuna, historical white Huns, named for their tribal designation. Spiritually, Swetka is linked to purity, ascetic whiteness like ash, and transcendence. Sweet Siva and white ash symbol. Saivism, the worship of Siva, uses Vibhuti, sacred ash, as a core mark. These three horizontal lines across the forehead, this is where the Christians get their Ash Wednesday practice from. You see this right here? This is a moon worship practice, putting this white ash across the head, okay, across the forehead. And this is white ash, burnt impurities, symbolizing liberation from karma. Other Seva symbols tied to whiteness. Moon crescent on Siva's hair, lunar light, purity. Snowy Kailasa, Siva's abode in the Himalaya, whiteness of transcendence. The trident, spiritual power over creation, preservation, and destruction. The swastika, before it became a European fascist emblem, in India, a solar Siva symbol, meaning cosmic order. Huns and Siva. Some scholars believe that white Huns adopted forms adopted forms of Siva worship as they settled in India. Archaeology, coins of Hunnic rulers show Siva with his bull Nandi. This is important. The Huns, through foreign, used what? Siva symbols. This aligns with the, I'm not going to go to it, but I'm going to say it. This aligns with what the Bible interpretations were saying about the moon god aiding and abetting Cain on his journey to integrate into Indian spiritual political life. That may explain why some later traditions remembered them as what? Siva worshiping. Spread of the symbols westward. How did the Swetka Siva symbols reach Europe? Several channels through Huns migration. The Huns were originally Central Asian nomads. Branches of them move west into Europe and east south into India. Along the way, their symbols, sacred symbols, and war banners traveled. Swastika/sun wheel, already in Indo-European sacred sign long before the Nazis, found in India, Persia, Greece, Celtic lands, Germanic tribes. Among Savites, symbolized cosmic turning and stability. In Europe, became the solar cross. Here we go again, cross. Sun wheel, still used in Norse, Baltic, Slavic traditions. The trident, triple wheel. Here we go with the three again. They love three. In India, Siva's trident. In Greek myth, Poseidon's trident. In North myth, Odin's spear, Gungir. Similar, triple power. Remember, I just said the three. They love the three. Triple power symbolism. Likely a shared Indo-European martial spiritual symbol reinforced by migration. See that? Reinforced by migration. White as a sacred color. In Saiva asceticism, white ash equals purity. In Celtic and Germanic ritual, white animals, bulls, horses, sacrifice for purity. In Slavic myth, Bello bog, white god, versus the Chernal bog, the black god. You see, they keep using these colors, white and black, echoes Vedic light versus dark polarity. But yet they would color these things white and color them black. Spiritual current from Siva to Europe. The Huns carried Siva coins, trident, and bull symbols into their territories. Remember when in the Bible interpretations it said that the moon god gave them things to protect them. So as they were moving, they carried these coins, the trident, and bull symbols into the territory. Indo-European kingship already linked India with European tribes, linguistic and spiritual archetypes. The Swetka spiritual archetype of purity, destructive power, and cosmic rebirth carried into Europe. Sun wheels and swastikas among Celtics and Germanics, trident/triadic weapons in Greek and North myths, and white versus black gods in Slavic dualism. Summary: Swetka, white, pure, radiant, use both spiritually. Swetka Deepa and Swetka Ash, and historically Swetka Huna. The white Hunas in India embrace Saiva symbols. They go to moon worship again. Trident, bull, and sacred ash. As Hunnic and Indo-European tribes moved into Europe, these symbols spread and transformed. Swastika to the sun wheel across Europe. Trident, Poseidon, Odin spear. White versus black, Slavic gods of light, dark. The Swetka plus Siva currents became part of the wider Eurasian sacred vocabulary. Would you like me to make a symbol map? Said yes, right? So this is the fusion map. India, Saiva and Vedic use cosmic order, well-being. linked to the sun, dharma, turning of cosmos on temples, coins, and auspicious mark, as an auspicious mark. Swetka Huna coins art, right? Hunnic rulers in India struck coins with swastikas, marks. Once again, these marks as royal seals became the sun wheel, solar cross, and rotational fertility symbol found in Celtic shields, Germanic rune stones, Baltic and Slavic embroidery in Norse myth, sun wheel, symbol of Thor and the turning sky. The trident, right? Siva's trisula, power of creation, preservation, and destruction. Symbol of both asceticism, which is yogi, and destruction power. The Swetkahuna use coins. The Tor Romana Miracula shows Siva standing with a bull Nandi and the trident. Adoption of Siva as a tribal war god. So Siva, or the moon god, was their tribal war god. The same as when Reharakti had the sun and his war god side. Okay? Europe, Poseidon's trident, power over seas and earthquakes. Rome, Neptune's trident. Norse, Odin's spear, Gungnir. Triple point, never misses. Likely shared Indo-European triadic weapon archetype reinforced by Hunnic Sava influence. Once again, white ash and white black dualism. Ash smeared on body, whiteness equals purity, transcendence, burn karma. Siva as Swetka, ascetic on snowy Kailasa, lord of renunciation. Swetka Huna link. Their very name Swetka equals white, associated with white with sacred ash and ascetic imagery. But this was because of their birth, not because of the sacred ash. Okay. So once again, the bull, Nandi, sacred bull, which is the bull, Nandi equals Siva's mount. I've seen this a couple of times too, with Siva sitting on that bull. Fertility, strength, Dharma, protector, common, temple guardian, Swetka, Huna coins, Miracula's coins, Siva standing on with bull. Suggest they adopted the bull symbolism as their royal legitimization. Okay, and they give the Europe spread flow, the flow of spread. So remember, AFROO said they got their culture from who? From their mothers and fathers, and they adopted those things in their coins and their cults. Okay, and then it morphed and it went into Europe. Okay, here we go. Swatika, the trident, the white ash, and the bull Nandi. Okay, I said, did their symbol morph into the Christian cross over time? That's a profound question. And yes, there's a traceable symbolic evolution from the Indo-European swastika, sun wheel, trident motifs into later Christian crosses. Though it wasn't a straight one-to-one, let me break it down clearly. The swastika, sun wheel, solar cross. All right. So in India, the swastika, well-being, cosmic order, often linked to the sun, and the four directions used on temples, coins, and household rites. Among the Huns and the Indo-Europeans, the Huns minted coins with swastikas as symbols of power. In Europe, the Indo-European tribes already had sun wheel symbols, the Celtic, Germanic, and Slavic. In Europe, the sun wheel with the cross and the solar cross inside the circle were common. This was basically a swastika amplified into four-armed cross of the seasons / directions. So the solar cross, a key pagan emblem, is the direct bridge between the swastika and the Christian cross. The trident in cross form. Siva's trident, symbol of power and divinity, divine authority. In Central Asia and Europe, triple pronged or four-armed weapons/banners became tribal insignia. In Christianity, some early crosses had fork or trident-like shape. You see that? In Christianity, some crosses had trident-like shapes, white cross, tau cross, which echo this lineage in weapon authority symbols. So they used these as weapons, all right, and it morphed from the trident, which came from from India. The Christian cross as a convergence. The Christian cross begins as a Roman execution stake, a crux, symbol of martyrdom. But when Christianity spread in Europe, the form of the cross overlapped with the older solar pagan symbols. So the Celtic cross, with the cross in a circle, is a direct survival of the solar wheel. The equal arm cross in early Christian art looks just like the sun wheel, and the chi rho Constantine Christian military emblem looks like the solar monogram, blending the Christian meaning with the solar symbolism. How the Swetka Seva connection played in. The Swetka Huna carried the swastika and Siva imagery into India and Central Asia. These motifs overlapped into Indo-European solar symbols already known in Europe. As Christianity rose, the existing solar/swastika-like cross forms are absorbed into Christian symbolism. Thus, the Christian cross is officially about Christ's crucifixion. Its shape and symbolic power resonated with much older sun wheel Swetka motifs. Okay?
Hold on for a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
You said the solar cross, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's it's called the solar cross.
Mm-hmm.
When something just came up. And this was the symbol of the
You want me to end my? You want me to? Let me just finish this because this is almost done, and then you could. Yeah. So I basically said, so basically this is the early forms of Christianity, and it says, yeah, you're putting your finger on something. Scholars often dance around the Christian cross as we know it did not emerge in a vacuum. It was layered into much older Indo-European solar and Seva Swetka-like symbols. All right, let's untangle it. The Christianity's core symbol, the earliest Christian symbol wasn't the cross at all. It was the fish,
right?
Istes, or the chi rho monogram of Christ. The cross became central only in the 4th century CE after Constantine. Formerly, it referred to the Roman crux, an instrument of execution tied to Jesus's crucifixion. So see, this cross was long before Jesus existed. Okay, older symbols layered it absorbed across Europe and Asia long before Christianity. The sun wheel, solar cross, right inside a circle, marked the 4 directions, um, seasons, and cosmic order. The swastika was the turning wheel used in Vedic, Buddhist, Celtic, and Germanic traditions. The trident, Trisula, was divine authority. Siva, Poseidon, and Odin. These were not Christian, but pan-Indo-European sacred emblems. Then, we read about the fusion into Europe, Swetka and Seva connection. We read about that connection. So the answer, it is literally Christianity before. Was it literally Christianity before Jesus? No. Christianity, theology, and story are unique, but we know that's wrong. That's false. ChatGPT must be taught that, but we know that all these things are intertwined. Okay, so that's the end of this particular presentation about how Cain and Abel got their symbol from their parents, the Hindu tribe, and how their battle and bloody war led them into Europe. Okay, so there we go. What do you guys think about that?
Go ahead, Noopoo. I can wait.
Yeah, because I think he about to do a presentation on that sun wheel thing.
Yeah, but I want him to go here real quick. I'm doing something. Go ahead, Noopoo.
Okay, well, yeah, that was another powerful display, especially with the breakdown of who it was as far as bringing about the racism. They didn't want to say that, but that's exactly where that came from, as far as the Huns,
Right.
the white, the Sabeta, the
Mm-hmm.
Sabeta Huns. Basically, that right there just, and with them stripping off the blackness and calling themselves the white tribe, so forth, just basically show how the Europeans of today look at themselves as being pure and looking at the woolly haired
Yep.
and Ethiopian race as being nothing.
That's right. That's right. That's a great observation, by the way. Appreciate that. Yeah, Ken, it's on you.
Okay, yeah, because I was just I just thought of something when you was talking about the solar wheel
Mm-hmm.
and the solar cross, and I just tried to do a little bit of just in my mind. I just remembered. I'm gonna just look at something real quick because these are different forms of the solar cross.
Mm-hmm.
And how all this stuff goes back to Hinduism and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So we can see you got the summer cross. Of course, all this is the death of the smat circle
Mm-hmm.
and its true origin. But here, when like he said, we're tracing how Steve or Tahuti or God told Cain, I'm gonna put a mark on you. But what they didn't want to tell the people that it was a cross.
Mm-hmm.
That before it was the solar wheel, and they changed that. They let that. We know they edited it. So what we're doing now is tracing the progression versus going back. Now we're going forward. And so then I looked at this right here. Okay, where is this at? Yeah, because all this stuff goes back to what we was talking about before.
Mm.
And this is a book that York put out, which you can see is the same thing. And we know that Christ in the Bible interpretation is really ghost. So this is the degree of ghostism, and we know that Osiris and Tahuti work together, and we know that the cross represents death.
Mm-hmm.
This is the most deadest of death that you can get
Mm-hmm.
at this point. And so that was just something that I thought about, and that is just showing you that Dr. York, who's not a doctor, Dwight York, and his followers have been controlled by versions of Hinduism, because even Islam, which is Phoenicians and all that stuff, and those they worship the same thing. Shiva, see, all that stuff go back to the Phoenicians or the Canaanites and all that stuff that they was using. New York was heavy in that when he was teaching that, but he tried to make it appear that the Canaanites were white, and that's not true. Canaan and Ham was the same, so that they were black Arabs with straight hair, not Africans. So then I just started doing some more other research because I wanted to. Let me see here. When you start going into the colors, because I started looking at some things just to support what you said. Where was it? Like here. I got a couple of windows open, so just give me a second. Which one I'm looking for? Word? Okay, look for word. No, I don't want it. That's not the one I want. Okay, yeah, it was word. All right, so when you get here, you can see that?
Yeah, I can see it.
All right, so what the listening audience need to do, they have to look up Black Dravidians. And it talks about the Aryans were the ones that called themselves the whites was calling themselves Aryans. So that's the Cain was the Dravidians, and the Abel's the Dravidians and Cain was the Aryans. And then they saw other names they was using. They was called, I think it was called the Harappa. And then I think I looked up what skin color was the Harappa. And it says over at Brown Punic, Zach Lateef brings up the point that the Indian bias for light skin may date back to the Aryans. See, right here, the Aryans. And it does seem to be that a bias manifests in the earliest text, but as some not able to read the original language, I can ascertain the arguments as the import of these passages only at a removed second and third hand. Some scholars have suggested that the radical interpretation or the treatment of the interaction between the Aryans and the natives of India are just a look at the past through the lens of the present. And they argue that the color terms of the Vedas are metaphors. On the contrary, these are others who seem to be arguing for more straightforward and literal reading of the source text. As a non-philologist, there's little I can add, but I didn't dismiss that those who argue for metaphorical reading because I know that the literature in the area of biblical scholarship that straightforward and literal readings are quite often deceptive and require their own interpretation. So he goes on, let me see, to be frank, the information being uncovered by Zach and others make me think that there was a racial aspect to these conflicts, that the literal reading has some truth. The tribal folk of India are genetically distinct from the caste population, especially the highest caste. Through all South Asians are a mix to varying degrees of an exogenous West Indian element and a South Eurasian indigenous component. The non-Austroasiatic Bible population is a relatively simple combination. And since the arrival of the ancestral North Indians and these hybridization event with the ancestral South Indian localized language and older Hindu scripture may then be conceived of as a conflict between the latest arrivals and the older long-established groups was a stabilizing ANI-ASI compound. So then I started, let me see. So then I kept going, and then I found this. And I'm gonna get the other ones too, but let me get to this here. I was in there. Where is that thing? Okay, here we go. All right, so this one here, I disagree with this particular person because we know what the nature book stated. So it says, even though Africans was in India since time immemorial, this wasn't the case. It said, according to Dr. V. Namali, the roots of the Indian Hindu caste system lie in the discrimination against the Black Dravidian people of ancient India after the Aryan conquest. So we already know these are the Cain group. In this valley civilization, also called the Mohenjo-Daro and the Harappa or the Harappan civilization. See, this how you know this person here doesn't really know, because they use words like this. When you start off according to, and then they suggest it's not really, they're not really sure. They suggest that the Harappan civilization was created by Black people from African kingdom of ancient Ethiopia, dating back possibly, but look at the time frame. We already talking about 6,063 years ago, so that ain't far off, right? Called the Dravidians. These Black Dravidians of ancient India created a highly advanced civilization in the Indus Valley region, which included agriculture, building, and sanitation systems. The origins of the caste system against the Black Dravidians in ancient India. The ancient Black Dravidian civilization of the Africans of ancient India, which is not true, was very productive, abundant, and peaceful. However, from about 5,000 BC, remember, Cain group was kicked out of the Mediterranean. See, look, see the egg right here. This group from what? The Mediterranean started coming into the region of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro in the area around modern-day Pakistan. Remember, the first 1,000 years, they King aONOO Rehorakti put them over there through the Great Green. They was and put up a irrigation ban. Right now it says around 5,000 BC. Now watch this. Now watch this. All right, we're gonna come back to this in a second. We're gonna come back to this just a moment. We're gonna show you something. So that's say around 5,000 years ago, correct? Now watch this. Tell me when you see this.
Yep.
All right, this come out the Bible Interpretation, Booklet 1, letter E. Who was Cain's wife, and did they ever return from the land of Nod? Cain was not one person, but a group of what? Albinos, right? AKA Aryans, who were the beginning of the Caucasian race. Therefore, Cain was male and females, and of course, the males took the females from mates. The first group of what? Canaanites returned to the Asian islands, from there to the Garden of Eden, approximately 1,000 years after Adam and Eve had been ousted from that paradise. The time was around what? 3,000 BC, right?
That's right.
So if you go from where we're in the year 2025. So if you go back to 0 AD, that's what, 2,000 something years. And if you go 3,000 years back, is what, 5,000 years, right? Then it says what? When King Cheops of Egypt, who was ruling what, Asia and Northern Africa at that time, lifted the immigration ban from which had been placed on Adam and Eve and their offspring, to keep them from returning to the Garden of Eden and what? Asia and Africa. When Cain reached the garden, he and she were not called Cain anymore. They were called Seth, the same as Egyptian Seth, which means serpent in the Bible. So what we need to do here, all right, I just want to check something real quick before I go to the next level. Just want to check something real quick. I'm trying to see. All right, let me do it like this. That was a broad question. I just want to make it be known. can't. It's not pulling for what I want. But I wanted to know what Seth, well, who was Seth was in the Hindu deities.
Mm.
Hold on, let me see if it's gonna pull it up. Shop Hindu Seth. But they said Seth is not recognized. But look at what it said, because I just leave this is good enough right here. We're gonna come back. All right, this right here, look what it said. This is what chat said. So here it said, Seth is not recognized deity in Hindu. However, the name may sometimes be confused with who? Shiva or Shakti. So that we already talking about Shiva. We was already talking about that. All right, we'll get into that at a later time. But I just wanted to throw that in there. So we're gonna go back to the Black Dravidians, because we know that this is showing you the result of the Egyptian pharaoh, Ethiopian pharaoh Khufu or Cheops. When he let the ban up, now they start popping up back up in Asia, going back to where their parents came from. Right? They said the infiltration into the territory of the Black Dravidians of ancient India continued during the period between 3000 and 2000 BC. Nomadic white Aryans from Central Asia arrived in the Indus Valley searching for food. And you know that because the Garden of Adam and Eve was called what? Africa and Asia. These are whole continents. They came from the Mediterranean of islands where you can't grow a lot of food there.
Yep.
So they were starving.
Mm-hmm.
And they knew about the land of Africa and Asia was where it was at. Now look, the Aryans had already domesticated horses by this time in an effort to overcome the scarcity of food and general harsher life conditions they had experienced in Asia. They raided and conquered the Dravidians, who were a settled population that was less familiar with warfare and had also not domesticated the horse. A war lasting, look at this, look how long Cain and Abel was fighting. Several hundred years took place between the Aryans and Black Dravidians in this period. Intermarriage between the Aryans and Black Dravidians also occurred. Again, this is another reason why they call themselves Caucasian, because they are from the Indian. All right? The Hindu, the Dravidian. After the Aryans, which is Cain, or the Caucasians, conquered the Black Dravidians, Hindus, they started dividing the mixed population. Here we go, different groups, with the highest group being the purest what? White. Followed by four other lower groups, each classified in according with how close white their skin tone was. Positions, jobs, and trades, which they do this in America to this day, thus organized according to what? Skin color, with the purest color white having access to the highest positions right down to the last rank, reserved for those with the darker skin tone, who were the Black Dravidians. Now look at this. The case of ancient Indian, according to skin tone, discriminating against the Black Dravidians. Look at this. The Aryans also probably wrote the ancient Vedas scriptures in Sanskrit. These Vedas are the source for the rituals and teachings of the priests of the Vedic religion created by the what? Aryans. Which
that's why you see in the scriptures that say white means pure.
There you go. Because they changed the definition after they got power. The same way they got in Europe and turned black into negative and white into pure when they started their legal system over there and all of that. They just reversed it. They just carried on their racism, which we're gonna get into that. Let me see, because I'm gonna jump back and forth. Hold on. Okay, hold on. Do I want to use that? Because that word is in the books too. Okay, here we go. So I'm jumping back and forth. Just give me a second, because all of this is relevant. All right, we'll stop sharing. We're gonna come back to this, y'all. So we seen that they was being racist. All right, one-sided racist. Now let's go to the moon. We're going to Bible Interpretation Book 2. Look, the moon god ghost is Christ, the god and extractor, the Caucasian race from the Phoenician and look, East Indian peoples, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Christ is ghost, the death gases. The moon god Thoth Animus is part of Leviathan that produces ghosts. Therefore, ghost and Thoth are the same. The Caucasian race inherited its colonizing nature from the Phoenician and its caste nature from the Hindu and East Indians. So this is showing you where they got it from. All right, so we're gonna jump back. Go back to the Black Dravidians. This is what the white Aryans, their brethren and sisters who came back into Asia 1,000 years after the priests and nuns, the Phoenician and Hindu priests and nuns were kicked out. They came back 1,000 years later. So these leaders are the source of the rituals and teachings of the priests or the Vedic religion created by the Aryans, which formed the basis of the Hindu caste system, which discriminated against the Black Dravidians. In brief, the 5 castes created by the Aryans to discriminate against the Black Dravidians were 1, the Brahmins, teachers and priests. 2, the Kshatriyas, warriors and rulers. 3, the Vaishyas, the farmers, traders, and merchants. 4, the Shudras, laborers. 5, the Dalits, the outcasts from the lowest level labor, like street sweeping, toilet cleaning, and burying the dead. The Aryan whites call themselves Brahmins. In the Vedas, Brahma is the creator god, which we know is King aONOO, right? They knew who that was, so they wanted to be like him. So the white Aryans likened themselves to Brahma. The priesthood and teaching professions were their sole preserve. All right, hold on, just give me 1 second. I'm jumping around here, Kens. Just give me a little moment. Let me see if I can find this real quick. Just want to look real quick. Let me see. All right, so we're going to jump back in here and look at these 3 little joints. All right. Y'all see that? All right, so this is the Bible Interpretation Explanation, Book 1, letter J. Who was Melchizedek, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? Melchizedek was the incarnation of the Most High God of the Phoenicians, called Elyon. Therefore, Melchizedek was a Phoenician. As stated earlier in this book, the Phoenicians were a branch of the Hindu people. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were another way of saying Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva of the Hindu. All right, so this is not the one that I want y'all to see, but I'm just laying the foundation that all this stuff is in our writings, though. Now he says here, listen to reason, to help the reader and listener to the reader of this book better understand what the writer means when he states that there are many gods, but only one supreme being. He will identify the chief gods who are the rulers in the bottom half of the smash order. The time of circular changes in all existence, where all persons, places, and things are existing right now at the time of this writing. Who people call Allah today is who? The sun god, right? So we know who the sun god was 6,000 years ago, correct? That's what we talking about. Amenubi. We talking about Ray Harakti, Horus,
Mhm.
Tal Harakti. Look at this. Known in ancient times by acronym like the biblical Eli or the Caucasian New Testament Bible, the word Eli is short for Elion and Helios. And we know that Helios means sun. That's another way of saying Heru or Horus. The letters I and Y are interchangeable with each other, meaning one can take the place of the other. In ancient times, Allah was also known by names like Shamash. Shamash is the sun god of the Sumerians,
Sumerian. Mhm.
right, and the Akkadians. And again, Eli, chief god of the Phoenicians. Baal, Marduk, look, Ra, Ray, Amin Ra, Dambala, and look, Brahma. See, so this is showing y'all that they always we was always being worshipped. This is just showing you that the Caucasian is following suit. All right, I'm gonna stop that. We're gonna jump back to this article and finish it on up. The next 4 levels down to the last level of 5 of the Dalits or outcasts were all assigned occupations according to how close to Aryan white their skin tone was, with the darkest black Dravidians placed at the bottom. So now, once they came here and took over America, the Ethiopian African, us, Woollyhead, were now replaced. We were placed in a position that the Aryans had in ancient India. They did it to us now. So we're at the bottom in America. All right? Castes were hereditary, and so occupations and social status were all inherited, and most members of the last 3 castes regarded as service and labor providers, as well as artisans, were initially made up of what? Non-Aryans or non-whites who had been integrated into Aryan Vedic society. The lowest caste, called the outcasts or untouchables, made up of the black Dravidians, performed the most unpleasant work, such as running the cemeteries, general sanitation, as well as tanning and dyeing leather. In addition to defining people's occupation, the caste also placed limits on people's freedom of choice when it came to marriage because of the strict marriage restrictions and rules of the caste system, which only permitted marriage between members of the same caste. In the African presence in ancient ages, the presence of black Dravidians in ancient India and the consequence of the Aryan conquest of the black Dravidians of India is explained. All right, so that's all I wanted to add to that. And anybody want to say anything extra? We got like about 20 minutes.
No, that was a good observation and basically a summary of what was taking place, and it also backs up the fact of what I was saying, as chat was basically saying, that a lot of those stories weren't racial. They were absolutely racial. You understand? They only worded it in a certain kind of way so it wouldn't seem racial, because white is right and light is right. And dark is demon and dark, so why are you coloring? It's the same way. Like if you ever look at Shiva is white on a white bull and this, that, and the third, and the evil ones are dark with black skin and stuff like that. So it was a racial epithet taking place at that particular point in time. So even Chat GPT is under the spell. So we gotta break the spell from Chat GPT too. So, but we on the right path, you know what I'm saying? Because there's people gonna come along and be like, well, Chat GPT said you was wrong. We never said that everything that Chat GPT produces is correct. What we're using Chat GPT for is to bring the sources to the forefront. It's very easy for us to peruse through the sources when you have Chat GPT, because it moves lightning quick, as opposed to me going to the bookshelf and having to pull those things out of the bookshelf. So that's the reason, again, why I'm mentioning that we use Chat GPT only to pull from the sources. And even sometimes you got to be careful with the sources that it pull and double check as well. So so that's just my take on it. But yeah, the information that you just brought forth was was amazing. Though I didn't mention Dravidians or anything like that, we know that there's different names for different tribes. But once we understand the color scheme that goes with it, then we like, okay, this is where it come from. And like I said, you backed up the fact that they started altering even those texts, the
Yep.
Vedic texts and things like that. So here we go. Here we go. So yeah, that was beautiful. That was amazing. So thank you for the backup on that. Yeah.
What you think? We can't hear you.
Yeah, take it off mute.
I thought it did. Okay, hold
You
on.
good now?
Okay, it just brings forth. It just brings forth to the forefront as far as how Leviathan worked and came about from their creation and how everything is being played out right before our eyes. But going back to the root of all the information is just showing how they is following our blueprint is like, just like you said, is like they following our blueprint and it's just like the movie that came out, Trading Places with Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd. That's what they did. They did a switcheroo on just basically taking over and living out our royal life and putting themselves on the forefront and at the top of the pedestal.
I think we pull another one. Like you said, you wanted to keep it under, but we had an hour and 36 minutes. I think that was awesome. That was awesome. Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, I think we pulled out the fact, we're getting to the point where things are moving a little faster now, where we're showing where that cross comes from, where it's soon things are gonna be moving lightning speed because we done tied everything down. We're bringing things up to date and really doing what we're supposed to do as far as Noonieboos and bringing forth the information and things of that nature. And it's beautiful because even with the jumping around, we can now tap back into, what it is that we brought up before. So yeah, I hope you all enjoyed the show this evening. The fact of showing the origin. This is like a origin class of the Caucasian. Even there's only elite Caucasians know. And what I mean by elite, meaning those that hide the information from the world. Only they know, right? And they are just holding their legacy. Like in the beginning when I put that god Indra in there. That god Indra is there to protect the Aryan color. Remember I was showing you in the text it says that Indra is there to protect Aryan color. You understand what I'm saying? So they're using their god to protect their color because they know they were born of deformity. So they have to protect it. They have to, create diversions and things like that. You think they want to be known in the world as a deformity, then that would take away almost all their power that they have right now, because people will look at them and not respect them in that kind of way. All right, so thank you again for listening in, and yeah, we'll be prepared for another one. I don't know if it'll be tomorrow, but we'll see.
All right, so that's our thing for the night. We about to get out of here, and we appreciate everybody that's coming in. I see Karu in the building, and and branches and stuff. So yeah, true peace, everybody. And like I said, we'll keep you posted if we come back tomorrow. Go ahead, Neeboo, take it up.
Yeah, most definitely. That was a great bill and display of information that have been brought forth. Enjoyed the information as much as I have, and look forward to more exciting information that will be coming out